My name is Ingibjörg Lilja Þórmundsdóttir. Yeah, you can only imagine the inconvenience of carrying such a short and simple name in the global village we all belong to. But my family, close friends, and international colleagues call me Ingsa. And for the sake of convenience, I'm going to give you a permission to call me Ingsa as well. So we are here to learn how to create high-performing teams, right? So if anyone happens to be on the wrong session, this is probably a time to sneak out and go to the right session. Anyway, my aim here today is to open your eyes to some of the key ingredients in how to create a collaborative and a high-performing team in a sustainable way. But before we start the session, I would like to do a little exercise with you. So I would like to ask you all to close your eyes, and I would like you to raise your hands if you have ever experienced any of the following scenarios. You don't have to feel shy, because everyone has their eyes closed. You could have experienced some of these scenarios when you were new in a job, early in your career, or when you were working with more senior people than yourself. All right, let's start. Please close your eyes now. Have you ever decided not to contribute to a conversation in your team because you felt that your opinion or idea was less valuable than others? Have you ever made a mistake, but you did not feel safe owning up to it and openly share it with your team? Have you ever disagreed with someone, but you did not feel like there was a space for your opinion? And finally, have you ever known that things were taking the wrong turn, but you did not feel comfortable flagging it? It was actually so uncomfortable that you decided to say nothing. That has happened to me. Not my proudest moment in my career, but here I am. You can open your eyes now. For those of you, brave and honest, to open your eyes 4 times, to raise your hands 4 times, don't worry. This is way more common than you would expect. But why are these moments of silence so widespread? It's because it's human nature. No one wakes up like they want to demonstrate intrusiveness, negativity, ignorancy, or incompetency. We all want to appear smart and positive and collaborative, right? So that's why it's sometimes easier to stay quiet than to speak up. But how does this exercise connect to my session about a high-performing team? You might be asking yourself now. So, a few years ago, Google invested in one of the biggest internal research a company has done, trying to uncode the key to the perfect team. They studied hundreds of teams with shitloads of data, trying to find the perfect team. And like we all know, Silicon Valley really is crazy about data, so they searched for a common correlation. Were the best teams made of people with similar interests? Or were people motivated by the same kinds of rewards? Did people often socialize outside of the office? Or did they even have the same hobbies? Was their educational background similar? Or was it better for the whole team to be outgoing or for the whole team to be shy? They also looked at other factors, such as the gender balance, how long the team had been working together, and more importantly, did the team reach the department's goals? But no matter how much they searched, they couldn't find anything that any specific personality types or background made any difference. Still, there were 2 things that the good teams had in common. The good teams had a conversational turn-taking, equal conversational turn-taking, which means that if everyone on the team got the chance to talk, the team did well. But if only a small part of the group or few people in the team spoke all the time, the collective intelligence declined, and the team did not do as well. Second thing that the good team had in common was that they had all high average social sensitivity, or a fancy way of saying that they were good in understanding how other people were feeling based on the tone of their voice and other sort of non-verbal expressions. Within psychology, equal conversation turn-taking and high average social sensitivity is sometimes referred to as a psychological safety. The researcher at Google were finally on track finding the common denominator when they stumbled upon an academic study written by Amy Edmondson, a novatorous professor in leadership at Harvard University. So, psychological safety exists when you're not afraid to be yourself, take risks, make mistakes, raise problems, ask questions, or disagree. Because no one can really put out their best performance unless they feel safe and secure. And that's why psychological safety is the key to a great teamwork. So what the Google study tells us and shows us is that when teams have a high level of psychological safety, they do better and they become a high-performing team. So, nice picture of myself. This news about this enormous Google study came and traveled across the Atlantic Ocean and ended up at the Spotify office in Stockholm, where a team of visionary agile coaches representing almost every subgroup in R&D, and myself, coming from the L&D learning and development organization Spotify, we heard about this enormous Google study, and we became super curious about it. Was this perhaps something that we could look into at Spotify? So we decided to dedicate psychological safety to our yearly Hack Week project in 2017. But Hack Week is the yearly innovation at Spotify, where everyone gets the opportunity to explore new ideas and new technology. Spotify had well over 100 engineering teams at the time, and we knew that some teams were doing better than others. And there are so many reasons why. We were in a huge employee hypergrowth. We were doing tons of organizational changes, and so on and so on and so on. I guess you can say pretty standard issues for a growing company. So we knew that some teams were doing better than others. So instead of jumping on any conclusion regarding if our teams were feeling psychologically safe, we decided to make a little survey and ask people how they felt. We used the 7-question proposed by Amy Edmondson. If you make a mistake on this team, it's often held against you. Members of this team are able to bring up problems and tough issues. People on these teams are sometimes rejected for being different. It's safe to take risks on this team. It's difficult to ask other members on this team for help. No one on this team would deliberately act like it would undermine my efforts. Working with this team, my unique skills and talents are being valued and utilized. So the scope of the Hack Week was not to solve all world problems, rather to understand if our teams were feeling psychologically safe and introduce this concept to the organization. The hypothesis was that some teams were doing better, and the data from the survey really proved that. So we decided to build a solution that would support both teams that were doing well as teams that were sort of lacking psychological safety. The result was the psychological safety toolkit. You can see a picture of it here. So team could actually try to identify their issues themselves, and depending on the seriousness of the obstacles they had. The toolkit included the questions mentioned on the previous slides, as well as several different activities teams could do together to improve the level of psychological safety. We strongly encourage teams to reach out to an agile coach to help them, support them, doing these activities. We also encourage agile coaches to step in with an intervention with teams within their organization that they knew were struggling. And being a tech company and all, we launched a Slack channel, or sort of a chat channel in our company, where people could reach out directly to this group and seek for help and support. The final part of the Hack Week project was to tell the entire organization about this fantastic concept. And this is probably where we made a little boo-boo. Being very passionate about this topic and wanting everyone to know and understand it, we used somewhat a little scare tactic, blasting posters with bold statements. Not these. I didn't dare to have them part of the slideshow. Bold statements causing a little stir in the HR department. But being an organization where experimentation is encouraged and apologizing instead of asking for permission is promoted, we were forgiving and everyone moved on. Thank God. But in a retrospect, we could have pushed harder making this a part of the management and the leadership trainings at Spotify to make sure that our leaders understand the value of creating a psychological safe workplace. So I was managing the onboarding initiatives for R&D at the time in a huge hypergrowth, you can see. So I decided to take a whole bunch of learnings from our Hack Week project with me to my trainings. I asked Gustav Söderström, our Chief R&D Officer, to come and talk to the group about us being a learning organization and how important it is to fail fast and to fail often in order to become successful. He also spoke to the team to the people in the group about coming directly to him if they see anything that he should be aware of or if there is anything that needs to be flagged. I spoke about the famous imposter syndrome and how even if we are all new at the company, we still bring valuable things to the table. I asked the group for daily feedback almost every single day for continuous improvements on the program. And I was very, very sincere about any fuck-ups I did. And I just openly spoke about them, not trying to blame anyone else. It could have been the lunch, it could have been anything. I just spoke about them, because that's how we rolled. And all of a sudden, the onboarding was not just about giving out practical information to people. It was about making them feel in a certain way, feeling safe and feeling secure. And let me tell you, people really loved it. The program had a measuring NPS score over 80 almost constantly, which is something that I'm personally very, very proud of. People were not only loving it, managers were loving it too, because the productivity of the new hires went up to 77% in Q1 in 2018. And that is a really, really nice thing to have in such a in the hypergrowth that we were in at the time. Something that was really, really great. So, now I'm going to talk to you people. Now, many of you might now be thinking, well, my organization doesn't have these kind of problems. My organization is very psychological safe. Well, so did probably Google. Google is in fact full of incredibly smart people, and you would think that they had no problem speaking up. Still, there were teams at Google who could not speak up. What Project Aristotle tells us and reminds us is that when we try to optimize everything, we sometimes forget the success is often built on a complicated conversation and emotional interactions. And those things can't be optimized. That's the thing. So there is really no trade-off between high standards and psychological safety. It really complements one another. So when you have a low level of psychological safety, but your performing standards are high, performance standards are low, you create an apathy zone, where everyone are feeling crappy and nothing gets done. You don't want to be there. If your performance standards are high, if your performance standards are low, but your psychological safety standards are high, you create a comfort zone, where everyone are kind of feeling good, but nothing really gets done. Probably been working in places like that. If your performing standards are high, but the level of psychological safety is low, you create anxiety zone or a burnout zone. But if your performance standards are high and the level of psychological safety is high as well, you create the learning zone. And this is where we all want to be up. So, psychological safety is not about being nice all the time. It's just about being direct and not being afraid. Because innovation and creativity can't strive in an environment where we harvest fear and anxiety. We, of course, still need to hold people accountable. There's no trade-off there. We just have to let off the brakes. So, how do you foster this psychological safety? Can I see hands who is curious to hear about how you foster psychological safety? Pretty much everyone, okay. Let's do those slides then. Psychological safety lives on a group level. So if you are in a team leader, a VP manager, or a C-level manager, you should really tune in now, because I'm going to give you some great tips how to foster psychological safety. As an inclusive senior leader, you need to be very, very clear that we are operating in a world full of complexity and uncertainty. And we are really, therefore, bound to make mistakes. Encourage your people to fail fast and to fail often. And share your own failures with your people. Interestingly, studies actually shows that teams that have a high error rates or fuck-up rates have a higher error, do more of those things. So it's not because they're making more mistakes. It's just because the high-performing teams are more prone to talk about their errors and mistakes and learn from them. Tell your people not to wait until things are perfect. Build a culture of demos so you can course-correct things together as you move on. Build a culture and infrastructure of feedback and regularly ask for feedback yourself. And here you can see our lovely feedback jar at Taktikal. Almost full. Very well done, Taktikal. Give your team a freedom for critical judgments. Just ask them why they feel a certain way. Make handing out the red flags a positive experience. You need everyone's voice and a brain in the game, so we can solve hard and tough problems together. Model curiosity, ask questions, lots of questions, all the time. Encourage your team to have a conversational turn-taking, facilitate it, help them and support them, to make sure everyone on the team gets a chance to talk. And finally, and the most important thing, ask your team this: am I missing something? I need to hear from you. So, I'm going to give you a moment to take a look at this lovely GIF. So, when a leader apologizes for not making it safe in the past, there's this spontaneous tendencies of saying, "Why didn't you come to me?" rather than to think, "I wonder what I did that made it difficult for you to come to me." Or, "I can see that there are things that I did in the past that made it difficult for you to come to me." So, hate to break it to you, but it's always on the leader to go and take the first step into creating a psychological safe workplace. The good news is that you don't have to implement crazy, expensive enterprise systems. That's the good news, and for your IT department as well. You just have to work on your behavior and influence your organization. Good. Now, wouldn't it be nice if it was just this easy building a high-performing team? We hire very talented people, and we need to provide them with information. Not providing them with information is like owning a sports car and not putting a fuel on it. It really makes no sense. To demonstrate this, I did a little experiment with my 12-year-old son, Andri. I bought a big box of Lego, but I only gave him one bag from the box and one page from the instruction manual. He had no idea what he was building, and he got a little frustrated not knowing what he was building and how much was left and so on and so on and so on. So I was in the kitchen cooking at the time. So he had to actually call for more pages of the instruction manuals and to get an additional building block. And sometimes I was really busy in the kitchen, so he had to wait. Imagine that. And I became a huge bottleneck in the whole process. What this experiment teaches us or shows us or demonstrates is that when we hold back information, we create frustration and we are slowing people down. We don't want to do that. I was introduced on stage as an organizational coach. I was actually hired as a head of people and strategy, but as my role moved on, I felt myself being more of an organizational coach. And People could say that managing both people and strategy is an interesting mix. Some people say that. The truth is that it ties in so incredibly closely together. My approach to the strategical roadmap at Taktikal is not just about making it sexy to potential investors. And don't get me wrong, I love to set ambitious goals. I just think it's just as important that it's understood and used by my team on a daily basis. So we, for example, include them setting the OKRs, building a bridge from our yearly strategical objectives to the bi-weekly planning meeting that is owned by the team. And if you're curious to hear more about the OKRs, I know there was a session here in UTmessan last year. You can go and search for it. The reason why I'm mentioning this is that because strategical planning is so often outside of the team's scope. And I'm not proposing you building or drawing a blueprint instructions like the one that comes with a box of Lego. Please don't go there. I just want to ask you to tell your team why you exist and what mission you are on. The mission could be that you want to cross a river. Then it's up to the team to decide if they want to build a bridge, build a tunnel, build a boat, or simply walk down the stream to see if they can jump over somewhere. Nothing motivates people more than finding the solution to the problem that they burn for. And talking about burning for something, people on the team also need to have an individual dialogue with themselves if they want to be a part of that mission or if they want to be a part of that team. So, the world is changing faster than ever. And I'm actually quite sure that you will hear this phrase 100,000 times during this day, during this conference. We are all a part of the knowledge economy, where the knowledge and the ideas people bring to the table every single day are the most important asset a company can have. Yet, the data shows over and over again that so many people come to work where they feel that they can't speak about what they know and don't know. It's a mission critical for the learning economy that people feel safe to talk about those things. And we have to create a culture that facilitates that. Don't underestimate the power of giving people the common platform and the operating language and empower them to strive in your organization. I'm a very passionate cook, and I love browsing through cookbooks. Really love it. But I usually modify the recipes a little bit, make them mine. And today I'm going to ask you to do the same. Take some of the ingredients that are shared with you today and create your own secret sauce. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm super blown away to see how many of you came today. And I want to just wish you good luck in creating a high-performing team and a fearless organization. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I will be here today. We have a booth here at UTmessan. You'll find my name card there. And yeah. And before I take off, I want to say special thanks to Embla, our dear designer at Taktikal. Thank you so much for making these fantastic slides for me. Thank you.